Awesome. Welcome to another episode of Cup of Joe. We are at Citizen Think Tank. We have a lot of our clients and other friends in the room, so we're very, very excited to do this one live in front of a group, and we are ready to rock. So, sweet. Joe, what were your initial perceptions of senior living before you actually entered into the industry?
Well, I was brand new. I was like an adult, right? So every other adult, but we don't know what senior living is. I don't know if you guys talk to people outside of the industry, even doctors. No one knows what senior living is before you're in it, in my opinion. Until you really experience it, it's really hard. That's really the challenge of the marketing side of our business, I think, is how do we communicate how we are going to help old people in a way that is edible for the normal public, right? Because everyone thinks it's a nursing home. There's only one kind of senior living in public, right? It's nursing homes. Mm-hmm. Then they walk into our buildings and they're like, "What? This isn't a nursing home?" Yeah. So we got to figure out some way to communicate that to the public a little bit more effectively, I think. And so I'm really glad to see the space growing and like the work that you guys do. Kevin actually said something the other day that was awesome, I thought. It says marketing is creating shortcuts to buying decisions. I think in that's the best kind of definition of marketing that I've ever heard. And I think in our world, it's different than that too. It's really marketing is creating shortcuts to better lives. Because eventually, people end up in some sort of living situation more times than not. The people that move into our buildings would have moved into our buildings or skilled nursing or something along those lines at some point, right? The time wasted from the time they should have to the time that they do, that takes out a lot of joy that they could have experienced, right? Yeah. A lot of peace that their kids would have had. And so I think that's a really long answer to say.
No, that's cool.
It's a long answer to say I had no idea what senior living was, right? Just like everybody else, I just thought they were nursing homes.
Fair enough. And can you tell us a little bit about what your roles in the past were?
So I started as an ED, an executive director. It was a building being built in Amarillo. Okay. One of the most important people in my whole life, actually, Kimberly Erickson. She called me one day and like, "Hey, do you want to? I want to talk to you about running a senior living place." And I'm like, "Well, I'm uneducated. I have no idea what you do, and I'm pretty happy in my job. But other than that, it sounds like a great idea." And so then we visited, right? And I still wasn't 100% sure until I went into one. And then so it sort of changed my life. But being an executive director, when I got into it, I didn't realize, I was already a general manager of hotels, and then I ended up having 38 hotels that I was in charge of. And so I thought it'd be kind of like that, basically.
Sure.
And it turns out that's not true. Executive director, the hardest job I have ever had by far. It is way, way more difficult than anything else. And I've done a little bit of everything in the industry now. But executive director, not only is it the hardest, it's the most important role in our industry, in my opinion. And so, so that was the first thing. And I opened a building, I had to do licensure and all that stuff, again, not knowing anything about it. And so there's a lot of mistakes made, a lot of sleep lost, but we made it.
Okay, I absolutely love that. So let's talk about the mistakes and the challenges and all those that were made, but really, like, what would you want to, what would you want to have known back then that you can now kind of maybe teach other people from outside the industry rather that are coming in?
I think going in, I really wanted to lean on my ability to solve problems. And what I have learned over time is it's significantly more effective to solve people.
Okay.
Just wanted to outwork and kind of just outthink every problem by myself. And really, I've learned to spend a lot more time developing people. And it turns out then I have to spend a lot less time solving problems. And so I think that's the main thing. If I could go back to like Baby Joe in his first senior living exploit, I'd be like, "Hey, this is really hard. You're not going to be able to do this by yourself. You need to figure out how to make your people better and get the crap out of their way." Right? They're all really talented, it's an easy job to fall in love with, but you have to just remove the obstacles. And I'd say that's the biggest thing I learned is you can't outwork senior living. You can't do it.
So you mentioned that you came from the hotel industry. I know that you also had some experience in oil and gas and those types of aspects. What types of skills were you able to basically transfer into your role in the senior living world? Or, you know, whether it's your executive director role, your director of marketing, etc.
Yeah. So I've never worked in the same industry for two different companies in my whole life. And I think that's because, number one, I've been really fortunate to have relationships in my life. People pour into me from different parts of the world and different parts of industry. And so I've been able to kind of make some changes and experience some fun things, but it all really boils down to the same things. It doesn't matter. I mean, I was in charge of a pretty good sized manufacturing company in the oil and gas field. We designed and manufactured solar power units and AC to DC rectifiers. It's a pretty technical part of the oil field, but it turns out it's the same as senior living. When you boil it all down, we have to have great service, a great product that will create great margin. You just repeat that process.
Fair.
Right? It doesn't matter if it's a solar power unit, it's the same thing as an experience for one of our residents. You gotta have a great product with great people, make a good margin.
Very cool. How did you, how did you get that product knowledge or that knowledge specifically to the senior living space? And like, what avenues did you go down to obtain the information that you needed to get?
But honestly, such an experiential industry. Again, you can't know a lot about it until you just sort of get in the middle of it. So the main reason that I was able to learn so much about every part of the industry, number one, I have never said no. Like, hey, you want to try that? Yeah, I want to try that. You know, like the famous thing about whenever I got into the marketing side, you know, my boss was like, hey, do you think you could do the marketing job? I'm like, well, yeah, not tomorrow, but you know, eventually I can learn how to do that. And I think that's important. Just think, yeah, we can figure this out some way or another. You can figure it out.
Right.
And so I was always down to kind of try whatever. I think that is the main reason I've been able to learn as much as I have about the industry. Also, there's still a ton out there to learn.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, and this is something that I've started, maybe it's become kind of my most important thing I hire people for, is curiosity. I hope that I can maintain this like insatiable curiosity that I have at this point in my career. I just can't. I just dig and dig and dig because I think it's also interesting. There's very, very few. I crave impact more than anything. Like, I could not tell you. This is the honest truth. My wife could totally tell you, but I cannot tell you what my paycheck is. I have no idea what goes into my account every 2 weeks. Right? I literally don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, I care enough that
Yeah.
I've been able to make a decent life for my family. But I crave impact so much.
Right.
Right? And so because of that, I think that's one reason this industry has fit me so well, because I'm not sure there is an industry where you can have a more significant impact on a wider group of people. So it's not just you have so many lines of the business where you can grow people and let them establish like great careers, but you also have the old people.
Right.
We can improve their lives as well, right? I tell all of my teams when I do like huddles and things like that, whenever I'm out at the different communities, say, look, at the end of these old people's lives, right? I say old people, by the way. I know that's probably not super popular. My whole thing is like, it's okay. They know that they're old, and I'm a big fan of being real with them. So whenever I'm around the residents, it's serious, is very rare seriousness with the old people.
Right.
So I just treat them regular, and we have fun. I've had people, when I was a director, they would like play tricks on me and stuff. I mean, it was never serious. Always professional, but never serious. That's my new goal in life. And so anyway, I tell my teams when I do huddles, at the end of these people's lives, they're going to sum that up in about 4 or 5 paragraphs. And you in the newspaper when they write the eulogy or whatever the write up.
The obituary.
Obituary. There you go.
Yeah.
When you write the obituary, you got 5 paragraphs, and they say, "This is that person's life in 5 paragraphs," which is not a fair thing to ask, but it's the space they get.
That's right.
So it is shocking to me how often our teams end up in the only 5 paragraphs they get. So I just take that really serious.
Yeah. Okay,
So yeah.
I love a lot of what we're talking about here. You mentioned Kimberly Erickson, obviously a big mentor of yours, as well as how you hire people and all of those different things. Clearly, culture is like very, very important to you. Excuse me. Wow, puberty.
Hope that happens to me someday.
So tell me about how the culture in senior housing and senior living is different than the cultures that you've experienced in other organizations, and kind of how you've been able to. Yeah, tell me that.
There's nothing else that you can so easily draw a line from what you do to why you do it, right? Well, that's a great platform to build culture on. It would be really difficult to build a culture like what we have in our world if you're manufacturing packing peanuts. Like, I'm not sure how I go about that huddle. Like, hey guys, we're gonna help people pack their homes up and not break their valuables. Go team, right? It's like, well, it's important, right? The world needs packing peanuts. Yeah. That's a hard thing for me. I'm not good enough to build culture in those kinds of environments.
Sure.
This kind of environment, though, it's like, hey, we love people, they love us, we improve their lives, we create careers for people, we give relationships back to daughters, back to sons that they have lost as they've become caregivers for their parents. I mean, it's just an easy way to build culture. All you have to do is lean into it and constantly remind everyone that that's what they do. So interesting, cool stat. I think that our industry has really kind of missed, honestly, or hasn't done as well as it should have. We need to hire a lot of people. Everyone knows that, right? The generations we're going to be hiring are millennials and Gen Z. 96% of millennials rank purpose as one of their top priorities in work. 86% of Gen Z rank purpose as one of their top reasons for choosing places of work. We have got to get out of the "have you ever worked in senior living before?" attitude. We need too many people, and we have these 2 generations that we really just need to tap into. Say, hey, look, we are what you're looking for. And if you want to be in dining, great, we can do that. If you want to be in sales, great. Operations, great. There's literally anything you can think of, you can do that. And we need to capitalize on that more as an industry, in my opinion.
Awesome.
I think we're really missing that.
So what advice would you give professionals who are considering, I should say, transitioning into senior housing?
What advice?
What advice would you give somebody if they're coming in from, whatever industry it is?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I think every executive member of corporate teams or home office teams, I think everyone should have to spend at least 6 months as an executive director. There would be nothing more infuriating to me if I'm an executive director for somebody that has never been in a building saying, hey, just do this. It's like, oh, wow, I wish I would have thought of hiring some more people. It's like, congratulations, you're so smart. You need to go through the pains of it, right? And so I think as far as advice for people trying to join in, I would say get into a building as much as possible. You'll never understand the community unless you're in it. It'll just be a building. It will be an asset and not a community, right? You hear a lot of that. A lot of the kind of friction between some of the ownership groups and the management groups, in particular, when you get into some of the bigger REITs, a lot of management groups kind of, they struggle with the language of the big REITs. I don't want to say any names of the big REITs, but everybody knows who they are. Yeah. It's because they look at them like a number, right? They say asset, they don't say community, right? They say units, they don't say apartments. And I think being able to get into those communities allows you to communicate with the ownership groups in a much more effective way. And we have to teach them and bring them along in that process. So I would say my biggest advice is spend time in the communities. No matter if you're at a corporate level or not, spend time with your frontline team, taking out trash. I've never done direct care because I like flirt a lot with the old ladies who would be like pretty inappropriate. But so that's the thing, is get in the weeds. That's the only way you're going to be successful.
That's awesome. When you're hiring people from outside of the industry, like what things do you look for specifically in them to make sure that they are the right fit?
Yeah, so I have kind of a weird interview process, admittedly, but like I said, curiosity is my new thing that I'm pretty set on. And this is, I don't know if this is even super appropriate. So if it turns out it's not, can we just cut that part out?
Sure, let's go.
Great. One of the most important things for me is I look for a history of successful relationships.
Yeah.
And that goes all the way back. Like, I want to see people that have good relationships with their parents and with their siblings. Hey, who are your best friends? And they're like, well, I don't have any friends that I hang out with a lot. Well, that's a little bit of an issue for me. I want you to have friends that you've had for 20 years. I want you to have, if you're married for 20 years, right? All those things. It's not because I care if you're married or not. It's because there's going to be ups and downs in our relationship at work too.
Yeah.
And people that have long-standing relationships in their family, friends, spouse, they have developed the skill of being able to get through hard things. And so as far as kind of the interesting things that you might be able to add in to what you look for, as a tip, I would say if you spend time looking for successful relationships in people, it's a pretty good indicator of success, in my experience.
Cool. Do we have questions from the audience people want to ask?
When you've hired outside of the industry, when you think about who you've hired from outside of the industry and that they've been successful, is there any, did they come from any specific industry, or have you just seen a variation? It didn't matter. It truly was the personality set. Or was it the personality set was drawn to that particular industry? So I don't know, we're hiring.
Yeah, I think some of both, actually. So we probably the most common thing that we've seen from outside the industry is the hospitality side, not dissimilar from myself. But I'd be hard pressed to say I'm a hospitality. I was only in hotels for about 1.5 years, 2 years-ish. And so hospitality is probably the main one. But I think that's because the industry has just started to be like, well, okay, we're good with outside people, and hotels seems to make sense. When I think we need to say, hey, let's find the people that make sense, and I don't care where they worked, right? And that's one of my goals is, as my impact hopefully continues to grow, is, like I said, I just want to keep opening this up. And we hired a gentleman recently who's he's gonna crush it. He's doing great so far. And he was part of a small vocational school. And he's gonna do great because he has all the skills and the heart necessary to succeed. So again, I don't care what industry they're from. I think as an industry, we're like, well, hotels, they're okay, or hospitals are okay. They understand us enough, but I think we got to get out of that habit.
I love that. Any other questions before we wrap this up? Okay, cool. Oh, sorry, Dylan, go ahead.
I'm curious, what is your management style in terms of delegating to your next line of leadership, and what's the qualities that you look for the people who work under you, and what's unique to working under you?
So qualities are kind of what we talked about earlier when we talk about history of successful relationships, things like that. As far as capabilities are concerned, depends on the role. My number one sidekick if I'm hiring a group of people that I directly supervise, I need somebody that will keep me that will send me an email hey, or grab my hand and set me down at my desk and be like, I need you to just sit here for a second.
Renee Beavers.
Yeah, that's right. I need somebody to do that for me because I can get pretty visionary and pretty big picture sometimes. But my management style, I try to get the very best people around me, and then honestly, I make the joke like I just want to take their trash out. Stuff gets in their way, and our job as leaders is to remove those obstacles. I talked about being a med tech earlier. The reason I did that was not because I wanted to just be so close to the residents or because I wanted to pass meds, which, by the way, is terrifying for me. But the thing is if I didn't cover that cart, then my health and wellness director or my RSC was going to have to cover it. Well, they have like their regular jobs. And if they're covering the cart, I'm going to have to do their job. And I'm going to just tell you, I am not that good at it. Right? And so I'm like, okay, well, let me cover this med cart. That way they can keep doing what they do best. So I think as far as maybe the best way to sum that up was I try to do everything I can to keep their main thing, and then keep everything else out of the way.
Love that. Joe, thank you so much for joining Cup of Joe.